Hello and welcome to computer programming. So, good news is that you're not really going to have to learn anything new today. All right. This is a chance to sort of practice some of the stuff that we've already been working on, and specifically practicing conditionals and if statements. All right. It's a pretty foundational part of computer science. So, we have to make sure that you've got a pretty good grasp on it before we move any further. All right, so you may or may not have guessed this based on the name of the assignment, but you're going to be writing a program that can identify poker hands. So, poker hands are 5 cards, and there's a whole bunch of different things that you can get. Now, if you're saying to yourself, I don't know the poker hands, not a big deal. The lab document lays them out. So, a royal flush is all 5 cards of the same suit, and you have a 10, a jack, a queen, a king, and an ace. A full house is 3 cards of the same value and 1 2-card set of another value. So like 3 5s and 2 7s. A straight is all 5 cards in order. A flush is all 5 cards in the same suit, and so on and so forth. So again, you don't have to know the hands. You don't have to know anything about poker. Everything you need to know is in this lab document right here. All right, now, before we get started, we've got to acquire our files. So just a reminder of how that works. If you click on intro pokerhands.zip, all right, this screen doesn't do us any good. We have to click on the 3 dots and choose open in new window. All right, this second screen is going to give us the little download icon that we need. So we can click on download. All right, it's going to show up in your little browser that it's just downloaded. That's great. So what we need to do now is go to our File Explorer or our Windows Explorer, which is down there, the one that looks like a folder. Go to Downloads in your quick access memory. If it's collapsed, just click on that arrow and then go to Downloads. There's the zipped file. All right. I need to unzip this to be able to use it. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose Extract All. I'm going to hit Extract. And that's going to open up a working version in this new window. Now, I'm actually going to close the window so that I can clean up a little bit. So the zip file I no longer need. So I'm going to right click and choose delete. And then this file, I'm going to move into computer programming so that it's there with like our first day program, our making change, our Regents exams and leap years. Everything's sort of in one spot. And then if I click on this, it'll start up code blocks and we'll be able to see what's actually happening. So what I'll warn you about right away is there's a bunch of code here that you don't have to worry about. All right, there's code that like deals out the hands and like shuffles up the deck and stuff like that. You're not going to need to worry about that. You're only going to need to worry about these if statements that are currently empty. All right, you're going to be filling these in with code that's going to detect the different hands. Now, again, if you're not seeing this code, over here on the left-hand side, you've got the different tabs. You've got the arrows to move between the tabs. Just make sure you're on projects. Open up the sources folder by clicking on the plus sign. And then if you double click on main.cpp, you should be there. All right. So right now, if I were to run this program and go to build and run, you're going to see that it deals me a poker hand. So I just got the 2 of clubs, the 10 of spades, the 10 of diamonds, the jack of spades, and the king of hearts. So effectively, I have 1 pair. All right, I have a pair of 10s. Your job is going to be to write the code that is able to identify that and say, hey, congratulations, you ended up with 1 pair. Or hey, congratulations, you ended up with 3 of a kind. Now, a couple of things before we do that. It's important to notice that this program is always going to put the numbers in order. All right, so it's always going to go from the smallest to the largest, which is going to be convenient for us because it's going to make the coding easier. All right, but if I run this, no matter how many times I run it, you're always going to see that the smallest ones come first and the largest ones come last. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, what about the ace? Because that can both be small and large. In this program, the ace always counts as a small card. All right, so the ace is basically the smallest possible card, and the king is the largest possible card. All right, and that's actually going to become relevant when we do straights, because you're going to have to be able to do ace 2 3 4 5 as one straight, and you're going to have to be able to do 10 jack queen king ace as a second straight. So the ace is the one that makes it a little tricky, because it can count as both a high and a low. All right. So again, most of this code you don't have to worry about. All right, like right here, this is the code that like shuffles the deck. Don't worry about it. This is the code that's putting the cards in order. All right, again, don't worry about it. This is just setting up the decks. And then this right here, we are going to worry about. This is our cheat code. All right, so the reason we have a cheat code is some hands in poker are really, really hard to get. So we don't want to have to sit there and run our program a million times until we get a royal flush. What this is going to allow us to do is manually change the values of the cards so that we can get the specific hand that we want. So for example here, if I remove these comments, because remember the / and the star starts a comment, the star and the slash ends a comment. If I delete these out, that now activates my cheating ability. So what this is basically saying is, hey, make the first card an ace, the second card a 10, the 11 is a jack, the 12 is a queen, the 13 is a king, and then make them all spades. So I've effectively just given myself a royal flush. And if I were to rerun my program now that this cheat code is on, you'll see that it's going to tell me, congratulations, you have a royal flush. All right, so let's take a look at how I detected the royal flush, and then let's take a look at what you're going to be doing. All right, so if we go down here, again, don't worry about all this. You can just leave it as is. This is where you're working, down here in these if statements. All right, and here's my very first if statement. All right, the one that ends with, congratulations, you have a royal flush. So if we look at this, this is saying suit 1 equals suit 2, and suit 1 equals suit 3, and suit 1 equals suit 4, and suit 1 equals suit 5. Now, basically by the chain rule, that means all the suits are the same, because if 1 is the same as 2 and 1 is the same as 3, by extension, we know that 2 and 3 are going to be the same. So this is how we check to see if all the suits are the same. All right, so again, this is saying, hey, this one is the same as this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And if even one of them is different, the whole thing will be considered false because these are ands. And we've already learned that with ands, everything has to be true or the whole thing is considered false. So this is me checking to make sure all the suits are the same. Now, for the royal flush, it's a very specific set of cards. You have to have the 10, you have to have the jack, you have to have the queen, you have to have the king, you have to have the ace. There's no exceptions there. So what I'm doing here is I'm checking to make sure that card 1 is the ace, because again, the program puts the cards in order. And for our purposes, the ace is always the smallest card. So the ace would end up in card 1. It's checking to make sure card 2 is the 10. It's checking to make sure card 3 is the 11. It's checking to make sure card 4 is the 12. It's checking to make sure card 5 is the 13. All right, so if all of these things are in place, if every single one of these statements is true, the whole thing will be considered true. All right, because they're all being anded together. If even one of these equal statements is false, the whole thing will be considered false. All right, and requires everything to be true. So if even one of these is not true, it will destroy the royal flush. So if I went up here to my cheat code and I said, all right, I'm going to give me the right numbers, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, but I'm going to make this one suit a heart instead of a spade, and I rerun my program, you're going to see that it no longer gives me the message because I no longer have a royal flush. I've got ace, 10, jack, queen, but then my king is now the wrong suit. All right. So let's take a look at the next one. All right. The next one is a straight flush. All right. Now, the difference between a straight flush and a royal flush is that the suits still have to be the same, but it doesn't have to be 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. So a straight flush could be something like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but they're all the same suit. So how do we check that? We again say, all right, suit 1 has to equal suit 2. Suit 1 has to equal suit 3. Suit 1 has to equal suit 4, and suit 1 has to equal suit 5. So in this way, we're just making sure the suits are the same. We don't care what suit it is as long as they're all the same suit. Now, the straight part's a little different, all right? We're saying that card 5 minus card 4 has to equal 1. Now, let's think about that. Let's pretend your suit was 7 through 3. All right. If your suit was 7 through 3, hold on, I'm trying to get the calculator to come up. Calculator. All right. If your straight was 3 to 7, so 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right. Card 5 would be the 7. Card 4 would be the 6, because again, remember, my program puts them in order for you. So the difference between those two would be 1. All right. If we go down the line, card 4 would be a 6. Card 3 would be a 5. The difference between those would be 1. All right. And we can just keep going down the line. But if it's a straight, that means the cards are all next to each other. So the difference between card 1 and card 2, card 3 and card 2, card 4 and card 3 is always going to be 1. So the advantage here is we don't have to check for all the different combinations. We don't have to check for like 2 to 6 and 3 to 7 and 4 to 8 and 5 to 9. We can just say, hey, are the cards next to each other? If all the cards are right next to each other, if the difference is 1, then that's how we know it's a straight. And we don't have to worry about the weird straight. We don't have to worry about the straight that goes 10 to ace, because we already got that one up here. All right, the royal flush specifically checked for that one. So we don't have to worry about it down here. We can just check for all the regular straights where the cards are right next to each other. All right, so this kind of gives you sort of a starting point for some of the later ones that you're going to have to check. Now we're going to do one more together, and then I'm going to leave the rest of them for you. So we're going to do the 4 of a kind together. Now again, this is where it puts the cards in order is going to make a difference. All right, and let me show you why. All right, because the cards are always going to be in order, there are only 2 ways you can get a 4 of a kind. And here's what I mean by that. You could either have the lower card be 4 of a kind and have a different high card, or you could have the lower card be different and then have 4 of a row in the high card. You don't have to worry about detecting things like, oh, high, high, low, high, high, because my program automatically puts the numbers in order. All right, so to put some actual digits on this, like you could have, a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4, and an 8. That would be a 4 of a kind hand that we'd have to detect, but you don't have to worry about it doing like 4, 4, 8, 4, 4, because my program puts the numbers in order. All right, this is not a possible hand because it's automatically organizing it for you. This, however, could be a possible hand. We could have something like this, where the higher number is the 4 of the kind. So there's really only 2 scenarios we have to check for. We have to check for, is the lower card the 4 of the kind, or is the higher card the 4 of the kind? All right, so let's let's see how we do that. All right, if we go back to the program here, these numbers we're going to delete. They're just in there right now so that the program doesn't get an error when you try to run it. I'm going to delete this, and we're going to start detecting the 4 of a kind. So one of the 4 of the kinds we talked about is the lower card being the 4 of the kind. So that means card 1 has to equal card 2, card 1 has to equal card 3, and card 1 has to equal card 4. So we can write that and we can say, all right, card 1, all one word, has to equal card 2. Now, before we go any further, sometimes kids try doing this. That doesn't work. So I know that seems easier and like, oh man, I wish that would be good, but it doesn't actually work that way. What we have to do instead is say card 1 equals card 2, and card 1 equals card 3, and card 1 equals card 4. Right? We don't care what card 5 is, so we don't have to worry about it. And what we just tested for is we tested for the situation where the lower card is the 4 of the kind. All right, so right there, there's the situation where the lower card is the 4 of a kind. Now, when we do the second one, that's going to be separated by an or. So we're saying either all of this has to be true, or, and then we can check for the situation where the higher 4 cards are the 4 of the kind. So we could say, okay, card 2 equals card 3, and card 2 equals card 4, and card 2 equals card 5. So we don't care whether it's this group that's true or whether this group is true. As long as one of those two groups is true, the whole thing will be considered true. All right, that's the way the or works. And again, when you're using ands and ors together, all the ands get done first. So like this will get, all of this will get checked first. All of this will get checked first. And then only once they've decided these two ands will they decide the or. So the or gets stuck last. So they'll figure out, is this whole side true? Is this whole side true? And then or will just look and say, okay, if one side is true, the whole thing is true. If neither side is true, then the whole thing is false. All right, but in this way, we can now check for a 4 of a kind, and then we could put in a little message. And again, the message can say whatever you want, just something that indicates that they've got a 4 of a kind. So I'm going to just write, congratulations, you have 4 of a kind. And then just for formatting purposes, I'm going to put an end-L in there. All right. So anytime you add one, what you should then do is check it. All right. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to give myself a 4 of a kind. All right. So I'll give myself a 10, a 10, a 10. All right. Now, technically, I can't have 4 spades that are all 10s, but we don't care. All right. It's not going to break anything. And we don't check suits in our 4 of a kind, so it'll still work just the same. Even though that's technically not possible with a normal deck of cards, we're not going to worry about it. So if I run this now with my cheat code on, it's going to tell me that I have 4 of a kind. Now, I should also check the other combination. All right, so I'm going to instead give myself an ace and then 4 13s. This is where the higher card is the 4 of a kind. If I close this out and run it again, you're going to see that it still says, congratulations, you have 4 of a kind. So it's continuing to work. All right. So your job is going to be to write the if statements for these other poker hands. So the full house, the flush, the straight, the 3 of a kind, the 2 pair, the 1 pair. Now, part of this is figuring out how many different ways you can have a full house. All right. Now, again, the full house is 3 of a kind and 2 of a kind. So like having 3 sevens and 2 fours, or having 3 fours and 2 sevens. So you have to think, how many different combinations, how many ways are there to get a full house? And I'll give you a hint. There are 2 different ways to get a full house. So there's 2 different things that you're going to have to check for when you're doing this one. With the flush, there's only 1 way to get a flush. All right. With the straight, there are 2 ways to get a straight. All right. It can either be the regular straight, or it can be the ace straight, where you have to specifically check for 10, jack, queen, king, ace. Because again, remember, there's that weirdness that the ace can be high or low. So there's 2 different ways you can have a straight. There are 3 different ways you can have a 3 of a kind. And then the last 2 I'm not going to give you right now because I want you to think about it. But most of them, all of them really, except the flush. Yeah, except the flush only has 1 way, but all of the other ones have multiple things that you have to check for to make sure that you're checking all possibilities. And then again, you can use this cheat code here to test for the specific things and make sure that what you did works. Just make sure that when you're cheating, you put the things in order, because if you don't put them in order, your code won't work. So like if I tried to test for my 4 of a kind and I didn't put the numbers in order, like the program is supposed to do, then all of a sudden it won't detect the 4 of a kind. So, our program counts on the cards being in order. So just make sure that when you're testing things and when you're using this cheat code here, you put the cards in order. Otherwise, it won't work. And then you can always, when you're done, comment out the cheat code if you want. So again, that's a / and a star. And then at the end of the cheat code, star / and that'll turn it back into just a regular program. All right. And then it just gives you a hand as normal. Oh, wow, I just got 2 pair. So anyways, that's what you're going to be doing today. All right, that's what you're going to be working on. Obviously, if you run into any problems, just let me know. But you're working on writing these if statements. All of your code is basically just in between these parentheses and then a message. In between these parentheses and then a message, so on and so forth. All right, there's nothing that you have to do with this program outside of this zone right here. All right. Have a great day, and I will see you when I see you. Bye.